Hello and welcome to the What's Happening Music Show. My name is Jamie C. and I am joined by the lovely Michelle Louise.
Hey,
how you doing, Michelle?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very well. It's a little bit cold in Edinburgh, but we do live in the north, and that's what happens when you live in the north. But we are going to be joined later in the show by singer-songwriter Calum Baird, and we're going to learn a little bit about his music, his creative processes, and what it's like to be a musician in the Scottish music scene. Now, it's been a few months since our last show, and that is mainly because life gets in the way, and we don't really have any other reason for why we haven't been able to do the show. We've just both been really busy, but we are back in 2021, and we are committed to supporting independent music more than ever. And we've got an excellent show coming up for you, where we're going to have some discoveries, some music, and obviously an interview with Calum Baird. Now, before we get into the podcast, I should probably say there's going to be a slight change to the format of what we're going to do in future. So we were a bit worried that we were going a little bit too long in the past. So we've changed the structure. So on 1 month, we're going to have an interview, and then the next month, we're going to discuss a topic to do with the music industry. And we think that'll be probably better to give more time to both the interview and the topic. And also means that we're not going on too long and hopefully not taking up too much of your day when you are listening to this podcast. And that is basically all the admin that I have for you today. So I think we should get right into our discoveries. And Michelle, I'm going to hand over to you.
Awesome. So to kick us off today, my first discovery that I'm going to talk about is Eddie Mead, also known as EM. So basically this artist is from Appleton, Wisconsin, and he brings some really cool sort of garage tunes to your airwaves. So, really sort of a bit like, kind of like grungy, but also like the music that he brings, it's not just like, what I would say it's like your typical kind of garage. Like, he does a really cool mix of there's like some folk elements, like some shoegaze pop and like lo-fi. Like, it's really like, it's like a whole melange, but it's just like, it's so cool. And the sound that he produces is just like really great. I've really enjoyed listening to his stuff. He's got a new single out called Dumbo, which I definitely recommend everybody check out because it's good. And I think it's a really good like sample of the type of music that he does. Like, I think that's a good like sort of picture of his style. But yeah, he's actually got loads of material as well. Cause he's got quite a bit of experience, like within like music and performing and stuff like that. He's been in quite a few bands. But this is his first like sort of, solo few projects that he's been working on. And like 2020 was a really busy year for him. Like, he really, he did not slow down during this pandemic. Like, he was putting out so much music. He put out 4 solo albums in 2020, which is,
wow,
absolutely wild. And he's got loads of other releases, like, getting ready for like 2021 as well. So like, if you're looking for like new music, like, he's got a lot coming out. So definitely ready for that. And yeah, so we can basically expect to hear some great things in 2021. Definitely look through his 2020 catalog because it's super good. I'd definitely check out Dumbo. So yeah, there you go. It's kicking us off with somebody who's been real busy.
No, that's awesome. I think 2020 was a year for the artist, right? So many people produce so much stuff. I do have one question before I give my feature. And I always feel bad when I ask this, but what is shoeglazed pop? I've not come across that before. I mean, I probably should listen to this artist and then I would know, but do you want to just sum that up in a bit of a nutshell?
Yeah, so shoegaze is something that I discovered only a year or two ago, because I'd heard bands that do shoegaze before. I think there's quite a few sort of like bigger name ones that do it. So the one that I was thinking of is M83.
Okay.
And they're like, so They're the ones that have Midnight City. And if you listen to Midnight City, like, you'll recognize it. But also like Beach House, our shoegaze, and My Bloody Valentine, which are some other sort of big name shoegazes. So that's kind of like, so those would sort of be like the big ones. But yeah, basically like what it is it's to do with this is going to expose my inability to communicate technical language. But it's to do with like the guitar pedals.
Okay.
And so it's like, they'll play like a couple of chords and then they'll sort of, you know how you can like record it on that, and then they'll kind of like do another few chords, and it'll just kind of keep building and building and building. And so they call it shoegaze because you're always looking at your feet on the pedals. Ah,
okay. That makes a bit more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, having said some of the bands that you mentioned, I do know them, so I get what you're meaning now. So
yeah,
no, that's good. Well, I learned something today. I didn't know it was called that, so that is always good. Well, my first discovery is not a shoegaze artist, because I didn't know what that was until just then. But my first artist is a singer-songwriter from the USA, as well as your first artist. They're from Baltimore, and this is Will Sims, and he is an alternative rock and pop artist. And what I love about this artist is as soon as you hear singer-songwriter, you think, acoustic guitar, vocals, or something quite stripped back. And this is not that. His stuff sounds very, very full production. You know, production quality is absolutely insane. Like, it sounds like there's a band. It's almost like you're getting the Will Sims experience when you listen to the sort of stuff that he does. But the thing that really captivated me about Will Sims is his vocals. His vocals, it's not because he can do impressive ballads, and maybe he can do impressive ballads, I just haven't heard him do that, but his tone is just so rich, it's so warm, it's the sort of thing that you'd listen and go, wow, this is good. It's almost like the first time you listen to Rag and Bone Man and go, God, that guy can sing. When I listened to Will Sims, I was like, God, this guy can sing. And there's also, in some of his songs, there's also an element of grit, which also kind of just sits subtly under everything, which is absolutely amazing. So if you like really important vocals and really prominent vocals, then this is somebody you need to check out. But another thing that I love about him, and you know that I love diversity, Michelle, I always go on about it, but his songs definitely sit in loads and loads of different genres. So if you want to listen to something that is a bit more kind of acoustic guitar-y, then his latest single, Everything Will Work Out, is something you do need to check out. It's very acoustic guitar with some lovely subtle piano licks underneath, which just give an overall a really, really nice feel. He also has a song called Girl in the Flower Dress, which is a lovely acoustic guitar song. But if you like something a bit more rockier like me, he has a song called Unwind, and he also has a song called Decisions, and they feel a bit more kind of band, kind of rocking out behind him, and I think that would be amazing if you could see that live. A song that I really, really do love, and I actually got to say this, I think is my favorite. He did a collaboration with someone called Lindsay Colette, hopefully I said that right, and it's called Amber Eyes, and their vocals they bounce off each other perfectly. The song is just great, and it just has a real good kind of feel good, funky, but also rocky vibe to it. So if you like all those things, then this person is definitely someone you need to check out. He is an artist with a fantastic voice, which just seems effortless. I imagine he could just go sing one note and it would just be perfect. So if you're interested in singer-songwriters, or just a singer-songwriter whose voice can transcend a couple of different genres, then go and check out Will Sims.
Amazing. You've totally hyped him up so much there. I'm so keen to check out his stuff, to be honest.
I was so the first time I heard him, I was just like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. So So my second feature is called Lemon Drink, and this is an alternative indie band from Glasgow, and like their whole sort of their last like couple of songs and albums, like they sort of go about like what it's like to be like a girl in your mid-20s, like in the 21st century, you know what I mean? So just kind of like talking about like dating and like just life in general, and their music's really, really cool. It's very sort of like kind of edgy, and like they've got really cool like sassy lyrics and stuff, and I just absolutely love their stuff. I think my favorite song of theirs is called
A love song for you. Oh no, sorry, a song for you. I love a song for you. There we go.
You need to read your notes better.
Yes, I know. I love song. No, sorry. So yeah, they've got a really, really good song. It's my absolute favorite, A Song for You, which they released in 2019. They've actually, I checked out their music video on their Facebook page as well, and it's super amusing to watch as well. Absolutely love it. So that's like my favorite that they've got. They've also got, they got a new single out there as well called Demon Child, which is very cool. And it's not out yet. It's being released on the 12th of February. But it's very cool. Check it out. I think they've got like a couple little previews of it on their Facebook page as well. So if you're kind of interested in what it's going to sound like, check out their Facebook page. And they've also got an album coming out as well soon, under the same name of Demon Child. So some really cool stuff coming from them. And just, like check them out. They've been doing a lot of cool stuff over lockdown as well. Like I know a lot of people have been doing like live streams and like that kind of stuff. They've been doing live streams. They've been doing like cover music and stuff. They've been doing like a little bit of like behind the scenes like stuff as well. So they've been really, really active, which is fun. So yeah, check out Lemon Drink for sure because their stuff is bomb.
Awesome. Well, I think I will definitely head over to their Facebook page after we finish recording that because that sounds really interesting. And as you said, another busy artist over the 2020 period. So my next discovery is very different from everything that we have discussed so far, and I think it's probably different from anything that I've kind of discussed on this podcast before. And this is a duo called Hessian Renegade. Now these guys are from Glasgow, and I actually featured them on one of the rock and metal shows, which is on Vault Radio on Monday. Just a little plug. A couple of weeks ago, where they did a remix of Dead by Monday's Lost Generation. And I was absolutely hooked by this, and I ended up on their Spotify and also on their Facebook, just listening to a whole load of stuff they do. And I feel like this is probably becoming a trend of current kind of musicians and artists, that a lot of songs become a little bit more kind of genreless. They don't fit in one area. And these guys are another group that kind of don't fit in any area. They kind of cross between a whole load of different places. They're predominantly hip hop. That's what they kind of do, but they do a mixture of kind of electronic hip hop, which is full of tempo and drive, but they also do something that is kind of maybe a bit slower, so kind of like a hip hop in a kind of more poppy sense, and they do a bit more kind of epic songs as well. And they also, as I just said, they mix with people like Dead by Mondays, who are a bit more hard rock, and kind of fuse all those things together. So a really, really interesting duo that seem to have a lot of versatility. So who would like this? Well, I think if you are a fan of Glaswegian rap, which seems to be a bit of a genre by itself, I think you'd like him. If you're fans of the Scottish band Jamie and Shuni, I think you'll like them. And also maybe if you're a fan of Rob Bailey and the Hustle Standard, then I think these guys have got stuff for you to check out. So what should you listen to? Well, if you're a rock fan, then go and listen to the Lost Generation remix that I mentioned. If you like fast-paced hip-hop, then maybe Bulldog. There's a song called 7 Years, which is a bit more like that kind of that poppier. And if you're into something a bit more epic, then they've got a song called Locker, which has some really, really beautiful vocals. I'm not sure who the singer on that is, but it's just beautiful the way they kind of put it all together. So another act with a lot of diversity. Who knew? That's what I love. But that is my second featured artist.
I was just thinking, like, I think hip hop and rock are like one of those things that marry so well together, but like people like on the circuits are always kind of a little bit like, what? But it's like, it's very like, I mean, a la like Linkin Park and Jay-Z, right? Like, I mean, they were phenomenal together.
Oh my God,
like, I think it worked so
album.
well, right? Like, so yeah, no, I'll definitely check that out because I think it's like one of my favorite pairings, to be honest, because I think the sound that comes out is just so cool.
Yeah, obviously I love them, so I would definitely advocate going, just even listen to one of their songs and you can see what they can do. And it might not be your cup of tea, but they are clearly very good at what they're doing. So
yeah. Right here. So my final feature is a indie electronic pop, indie dance electronic pop. So it's a group called Dirty Soul. And they have been around since 2001. They're originally from Chicago. And it's just, their stuff is like very kind of, if you like sort of the popular kind of electronic music that's been around for the past few years, you'll absolutely love their stuff. Like, it's the kind of thing that I feel like, it makes me miss going out, you know what I mean? But like, it's the kind of thing that you would like hear in a club, like, you know, the music's slightly too loud, you've got a couple of drinks, but you actually dig the tune that's on, you know? So they've had a lot of singles coming out lately. They've got a LP scheduled for release in February, which is super, super exciting. So they also had a single release just in December called Future Looks Good. And I was actually listening to that a little bit earlier today while I was like running some errands. And it is just like, it's so fun. It's so upbeat. Like, it just kind of really lifts your mood a little bit. And yeah, it does make you want to dance. So, you know, indie electronic dance pop does its thing for me. So yeah, definitely check out The Future Looks Good and keep an eye out as well for their LP, which should be coming soon.
Awesome. I'll add that onto my bucket list of things to watch out for. So my final feature is another singer-songwriter, but this one's a bit more of a singer-songwriter in the traditional sense. It is a bit more stripped back, but it's not an acoustic guitar behind this person. It's a bit more of kind of your piano or your kind of your poppy piano that sits behind this artist. So this is Wendy Lucas, and you know, I think if you like pop, you'll instantly fall in love with this person, and also if you like outstanding vocals, this is also someone you're going to really enjoy. So her music kind of sits in that genre where pop fuses between R&B, soul, and just pretty much every other general pop song you can think of. That it's almost in that bubble that she sits in. And I really, really enjoyed listening to her stuff, even though I'm not a massive pop fan. So where should you start if you want to listen to her stuff? Well, she had a brand new single came out on the 8th of January. Which I think is very characteristic of her style, or the style that I have discovered is her style. And it is very much a pop ballad. It's got a very catchy chorus, and then there is also some masculine vocals that complement her vocals later in the song. There's also, you know, a nice element of reverb, there's some keys, a simple drums beat, and a very basic kind of tune behind it. I think it's probably just a simple 4-chord progression, whether that's on the keys or on a very, very subtle guitar behind everything. But her vocals just shine through, and you know, it is just a lovely, lovely song. It's one of those songs you can put in the background when you're doing something, or if you just want to listen to something in a quiet room, or maybe you want to go for a run. I think it's something that you can just ingratiate into all of those things. Now, there's another song if that's not really your style, which is a bit more R&B and soul, and that is called Overthinking, and that is also a very, very amazing song. The focus is still on Wendy's vocals, and like the music takes a back seat on that, but that is perfect. It's perfect for her. It works for her, and I think it is amazing. I can't deny that I think her vocals are amazing. There's a beautiful tone, and like with my first feature, the vocals and the tone just seems effortless, and I'm always shocked when I hear stuff like that, because it's just like, I can't do that. So I have a huge appreciation for people who can do that. So anyway, with if you like pop flavors, if you like a little bit of R&B, a little bit of soul thrown into it, then Wendy Lucas is an artist you need to check out.
Amazing. We love our strong vocals, so can't wait to see her stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It is absolutely amazing, and you're right. I love vocals. I love tonality. It's something that really draws me to a lot of songs. So if you have songs like that, definitely hit us up, because I will probably enjoy them. Now, guys, they were our discoveries for this week's show, so go and check them out. And as always, go and discover something new. We got a good variety of stuff there from myself and Michelle, so hopefully there's something there you will enjoy. Now, as usual, we have a song for you, and this one comes from a band called the Passing Sages. This was picked by myself, and this is a 6-piece pop outfit from Fife in Scotland. I really enjoyed listening to these guys, and they've got a really cool video for this song as well, which you should go and check out. I want to know who designed the lighting and designed the whole choreograph for it, because there's a bit of nostalgia thrown in there. They do a bit of kind of roller discoing as well, so it's all really, really cool. But yeah, this song's called Burning Up. It's by The Passing Sages. Enjoy.
Hey everybody. Okay, so we've got Calum Baird here with us, and he's just released a new EP called A View from the Notebooks, and we're super excited to sit down and have a wee chat with him. So Calum, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you very much. Yeah, I'm just keeping busy, trying to keep active mentally and physically, and trying to not get distracted by the bad news. I don't watch the news anymore. So, yeah, just try to keep busy and keep tuned into what's happening on the music scene, because there's been a lot of good stuff happening in the last few months. So, yeah, how are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much same as, isn't it? I think everybody's through the days. Like, I totally agree. It can get a little bit down when you're sort of constantly listening to the news. It all feels like bad news a lot of the time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you've been having a pretty good year in terms of music and stuff. Like like we said earlier, you've got some new stuff that you just put out. And like, how have things been, like, just adapting to the scene, coming from, I guess, a much more active and live Scottish music scene previously to what things are doing now?
Yeah. It's a big difference, actually. Well, obviously, but it's before when I was playing live all the time, I'd just be out and I'd just be thinking about playing live. I wasn't really thinking about online audiences or so anything apart from posting on social media about my gigs, or even bringing out music. I very rarely thought about online audiences. And so there's been a big switch in my thinking there, obviously pivoting to online and trying to get a balance between, because obviously we use social media for many different things, and as a musician I have a role, if you like, as a musician of social media, but I also have a role as Calum, who just likes scrolling social media. So it's trying to get the balance between scrolling social media and then when I'm needing to use social media for audience, like contacting audiences. So yeah, there's been quite a big shift. Like, you don't, I didn't expect this to happen. I didn't expect it to be so, like, prolonged as well. And, before this happened, I didn't have the Spotify for Artists app. I didn't realise how important it was. And now I check it a couple of times a week, and I think I try and see who's listening to my music and try to tie that in with my posts on Facebook, and try to, like, have a look and see which social media site's doing the best for me to contact people and speak to people and build an audience and all that sort of, like, really, like, financialized language that's destroying music and making art. But like, trying to think about it in those senses just to keep myself going, because it'd be really easy just to go, nah, I'm not going to do it, and then you start losing. I worry that I'd start losing interest. Like, I wouldn't play my guitar to just even practice. I would just stop entirely. So big mindset switch, which didn't take place like that, and I didn't have to. It just sort of happened, like, over the course of the lockdown period.
Totally.
And did you find, so obviously Michelle said you've illustrated that you went from obviously that very, very live setting to kind of being the digital artist that's online. Have you found that a lot of people have responded in a good way to that? Have you had a bit more interaction online because you've done that transition?
Yeah, there has been a bit more. There has been a bit more interaction. I have been a bit more engaged in what other musicians are doing, and sort of, for instance, I follow and I am followed by a lot more musicians on Instagram and Twitter than I was before this. And I've got time to, when before, like, you're just literally, your time during the week as a live performer was booking gigs and then going out and playing gigs. Like, you just didn't have time to really interact with other artists or other musicians, whatever language you want to use. So this is, like, really able to see what other musicians are doing, how they're making it work for them, supporting them, getting support from them, So that's something that's changed, and I'm also noticing people that liked my page on Facebook, for instance, for a while, that didn't really probably didn't use Facebook as much as they do now. They're noticing my likes a bit more. I've set up a group on Facebook, which is just for my music, and I just post stuff into that, and that gets a bit of interaction here and there as well. So just trying to think about ways that you can make an audience, I suppose, and but also make an audience, but also maintain like control over what's being produced, like not allowing the audience to become like a prosumer, if you like telling you what to make. So and trying not to do that watching what other musicians are making as well, because I'm looking at that a lot and liking what I'm listening to, trying to be like, okay, don't tap into that too much, like try to stick to what you were doing before, because I'm not sure how long this is going to last, and then after that what'll change, like if this'll all go out the window and then it'll be back to how it was in 2018 or whatever. Like if that's so, I don't want to get too sucked into the online thing, because that could all change really quickly. So yeah, just trying to stay flexible, I guess, and making the most of it while it's still here, I think, is what I've been doing.
Yep, and obviously keeping original as well.
Yeah.
I've not watched a huge amount of your live streams, which I'm sorry that I've not been at everyone, but I know.
Well, they're still on my page, man. You could check them out.
I'll just go and do that now. Forget the interview. But from the stuff that I have watched, you're obviously keeping with your original stuff, and obviously experimenting and developing your sound. So, as Michelle mentioned at the start, you have the new EP, and you also released Stones of Tomorrow, which is that?
That's correct?
Right. So that was earlier this year. And having listened to them, and then I've listened to some of your other stuff. Some other stuff I'm familiar with when you were obviously doing your live gigs, and I saw you in that capacity. I feel a lot of your music, you could argue, sits in a bit of a retrospective narrative. You're looking at the world and thinking about themes that kind of integrate with the world, but then integrate with a person. But I feel the new stuff is a bit more of an observational retrospective. I mean, I guess the whole title, Views from My Notebook, kind of give that impression.
Yeah.
And obviously with the artwork that you put out, is very, very personal. But I guess the question I'm kind of coming to here is how has the last 12 months, or how has the last maybe 24 months allowed you to grow into the music that you've now kind of put out there, compared to the stuff that you had out in yesteryear?
Yeah.
Quite a loaded question, I'm afraid.
No. I think I've always... The issue I've had or not issue, but what I've always thought about when writing songs is how am I going to play them live? Like, how am I going to go and play this song to a live audience? Because that was always how it worked. Like, I would write a song and then I would go and play it to a live audience somewhere, sometime. And so I never really got, I never added too many different instruments to my songs, or like, I didn't have a lot of electric guitar there, I didn't have a lot of keys, I didn't have a lot of bass or drums or backing vocals, anything like that, because I don't know if this is a slightly weird thing to do, but I was always thinking, if I go play this live, it's not going to sound like that on the record, and I don't really want, it would feel disingenuine, like I don't want to put a record out and then somebody comes to see my gig really liking a specific song, and then they hear it live and it's like, oh, that's, it might be a strange way of thinking and working, but that's how I always did it. But now with this coronavirus pandemic, and the uncertainty about when live music will actually come back, I'm not really worried about that. A lot of it's online now. I'm doing live gigs, but they are... The first live gig I did it not know what to expect, but after a while I'd after that gig, I got messages from people saying, "Oh, I really enjoyed that. Like, I really appreciated it. It's been good to have that in my life, sort of thing." So I thought, right, the next time I do that gig, I'm going to keep that same template, mix my songs with original songs, and mix my songs with some covers that people enjoy. So there's two sort of different settings there for working just now, with trying to do the online thing, which is the live stream, which is still my acoustic guitar and my vocal, a solo performance, but then thinking about my music that I'm putting out, where I can afford just now to be a bit more, not experimental, but add a few different layers and different ideas in there, and not really think about how they're going to sound in a live setting, because I've no idea when that's going to be again. And so yeah, that's kind of how I've been working it. And the song you mentioned that I had out in the summer last year, The Stones of Tomorrow, that was I wrote that, sort of recorded that thinking specifically about how it would sound recorded. I didn't think about playing it live, and I played it live a few times, and I don't really enjoy playing it live as much as I do as much as, so that's like a total change of thought. Normally, as I say, I would think about how will this sound live, but with Stones of Tomorrow, I didn't even really give it a thought. I just sort of wrote the song and then put it together with the recording, and yeah, that's quite that was quite a different thought process for me. And I've played it on a couple of live streams, and I'm not sure I like playing it live, because I really like the guitar solo at the end of that song. I never do guitar solos. Anyone that listens to my music, like yourself, that's been listening to it since I started writing years ago, will know that it's either no guitar solo or a harmonica solo. And I just made a change. It was going to be a harmonica solo at the end of that song, but I just thought that's like really not played out, but I don't want to do that. I did have a harmonica solo and a guitar solo, and it didn't work. It made the song needlessly long, so I just chopped it down and did the guitar solo, which sort of, it's like a 12-string guitar solo that I did there at the end. So yeah, and not having that when I play it live, like it feels like there's something missing for me. So yeah, that's quite different, and I'll just have to see how that goes going forward. I might have a set of songs that I write with the intention of playing live, and then have a set of songs that I write with the intention of just occupying a space online. And I've been quite conscious about song length, and I had a song out in 2019 called Modern Man, which I really like that song. I know that's maybe a bit vain, but I really like it. Like, I really like it says it's like a lot of things that were in, a lot of those verses were in different songs, but I took them out and put them into one song. So I really like putting that together. I worked with Jack Hinks, who I think you know, and he played some electric guitar on that, did some backing vocals. He played the Rhodes on that, and he also produced it for me as well. So I really like that song, but it's 6 minutes long, and that's another one that, playing that live, the first half's quite good, but then the second half, I kind of just like lose a bit of energy, because it feels like quite a long song, like quite a commitment. So, aye, that's not really an answer. I don't think there's a bit. It's a bit too. I think it depends too much on the current situation. Like, I have tailored to make room for the current situation and people's engagement with art, if you like, has changed. So I've had to make a change to my writing a bit.
Yeah, I guess like one of the key things right now is just like for like everybody, but definitely for artists and that sort of thing, it's like just that adaptability of, like you said, for someone like you, where it's like, you know, you frequented like gigs and, you know, you did the whole scene like that, it would be quite a bit of a switch. But maybe just to sort of delve in and reminisce a little bit, like about just playing in the Edinburgh music scene and in Scotland, and just like what was that like? Like, what, just for everybody who's been missing it, I guess, and just a little bit more about it, like. Yeah,
well, I was thinking that I've been thinking about that a few times over the last few days and weeks, just because we're coming up to a year since the pandemic kicked off, or set in, if you like. just thinking about how much of my time I actually spent in my car. And
I don't think you want to know the answer to that in terms of minutes.
Yeah. But not just only that. Like I used to have a playlist on Spotify, which I've just filled with songs, but it was specifically full of songs that I would play at gigs. Not just my own songs if I was doing a gig that had covers, so I would listen to them in the car, and I'd get to know the songs there that way as well. And I would play a gig on a Thursday night in St Andrews, and then a Friday night in close to Dundee, and then a Saturday night I'd Saturday afternoon. I'd have a couple of gigs. I'd maybe have one in Stirling, and then I'd finish in Linlithgow, and then on a Sunday I'd maybe have an afternoon gig in Edinburgh somewhere. Or I used to play once a month in Whistle Binkies on either a Tuesday or Friday night, and then you'd have Stramash in Whistle Binkies. There was a Canongate that I'd do on a Saturday night sometimes, which was in Edinburgh. So I was always in my car, I was always on the go, I was always listening to music. I was always very much like listening to singer-songwriter type music, and getting into that like culture, I suppose. Not necessarily consciously, but just by listening to that music, you got into that culture and that way of thinking. So that was a big part of it. A big part of it was spent in the car, driving around to gigs, and yeah, I quite miss that actually. I quite miss the that time, like that, especially if the gig was like poorly attended, or didn't go very well, or just didn't enjoy it, or I was feeling tired before the gig and I felt even more tired after the gig. You just had that time in the car to just like listen to some Neil Young on the way home, like, and have that space. So that's really from a personal point of view. But then again, like working with other musicians, especially during the Edinburgh Festival, you came into contact with people that you wouldn't have seen for a long time, and you would come into some people that were new to you, and it was very much like wheeling and dealing sometimes, like especially during the Edinburgh Festival. Like you'd literally be like, I've got to go, I've got a gig in 15 minutes and it's a 25-minute walk, so there was a lot of that, I suppose I think there was like a couple of different scenes that I worked on. There was like the scene that I was playing regularly, which was outside of Edinburgh, and then there was a scene inside Edinburgh, and there was you come across people. It was weird seeing people that like I'd see in passing at like a gig in St Andrews or something, and then seeing them in a venue in Edinburgh being like, hey. Like it was like that Spider-Man meme, like, you know, where they point at each other. It was like that, like, here, you're not supposed to be here, I don't associate you with this like particular part of like my work, what are you doing here? Like it was, and they were the same with me. So and it'll be interesting to see again, like what parts of that come back, like with the small out of town scenes, will they come back?
So you obviously, just as you were talking about all that and talking about the experience in the Edinburgh music scene, I mean, obviously I met you in the Edinburgh music scene, and that's kind of where our history begins, I guess. But something that I always found that was amazing about the Edinburgh music scene, and you touched on this when you're talking about the Fringe Festival, and it is a bit of a hodgepodge of everything is happening, and you know, I've got to be at a gig that's 25 minutes away and I start in 15 minutes. But one of the things I really loved about the Edinburgh music scene, especially during that time, was there was almost just this collective appreciation of everybody who was a musician. Everybody was doing their thing. It was like everybody was behind each other, and that's one thing that I found as a promoter, not necessarily as a musician, that there was a real kind of collective hub behind what everyone was doing. And I was just wondering if you had experienced something like that as a musician, and then if that there was a sort of change when the festival happened. Did that grow or did that disappear? You know, what do you think when the change between the scene when it's normal and then when the fringe hits?
Yeah, when it's normal, it seems very quiet.
Well, that's only because the fringe is ridiculous.
Yeah, but it doesn't. It just, when it's normal, it just seems very. I guess that's it. Normal is very quiet. I'm not sure if that's a good or a bad thing. I don't know. Don't really know what that tells us about the way people engage with music when it's normal. I think the festival culture thing, in all honesty, and the over tourism and that, like that, really, the way that that's been paused or frozen, or I'm not so sure how that will, if that will come back. I think it probably will get to that stage, but I don't think it will come back straight away. I think there'll be a lot of theatre companies that have folded. There'll be a lot of musicians that are consumed by other stuff now. So I'm not sure if the festival culture will come back, which I think would be a shame, because as much as it was crazy and mad, and like, as a sort of like everyday citizen was too much, as a musician, like, it was great. It was really good. It was like we were in some sort of like arts paradise where everybody was just like, the real world wasn't really there. Sometimes you were just going about playing music and drinking beer and going to see some bizarre plays. And there was a transition as well, I felt, from being a musician and then being like a member of an audience. Like, I would always try to, if I was out for a series of gigs, I would try to avoid going to another gig because it meant a show or a gig, because it meant having my guitar, and I felt like I was still in musician mode. So I'd try and get rid of I'd go home, get changed, and leave the guitar, and then come back out as an audience participant. So there was like a definite switch in my thinking to one and the other. And I think as well, it's weird because in so-called normal, when it was normal, musicians didn't feel like we had time for one another. You know, like, it was like, oh, I've just got to, like, I'm going to head off now. Whereas during like the festival, you'd end up you'd play your gig and then you'd end up be sat at the venue like all afternoon, and that wouldn't happen in like a normal time. Like, if you had a gig, like for example, like I say in Whistle Binkies, I'd play the singer-songwriter slot on like a Friday at 7, and that would gradually get busier as it went on, and then by the end, the second act or whatever would come in, and I wouldn't sit and watch them, and they wouldn't have sat and watched me. I would be like, I've got to go, I've got a gig somewhere else. But it didn't feel like that was it sort of feels like during the Edinburgh Festival, everybody would just like come together, and you'd sit and watch one of your mates play for an hour or two, or you'd be like, oh, he's on, all right, she's on after that, and then that band's playing, all right, I'm just going to sit here for like 3 or 4 hours and sit and watch them play, and then go to my next gig, or go home and become an audience member. So I quite like the whole like art and music and I don't want to say entertainment, because that kind of takes away from the fact that artists are working a little bit, but like, I like that being on every corner, and it's definitely missing, especially when the festival goes. It's like, I think it's worse than when I was a child and Christmas would end and you'd go back to school. Like, it definitely, like, I don't know if you've ever the festival's been on, like, finished on a Friday, and then you go into town, or it usually finishes on a Sunday, doesn't it? So it finishes on the Sunday, and then you go into town the next again weekend, and there's nobody. Like, I don't know if you've ever noticed that, or if you've ever experienced that, or felt that. And that's what it's like. It's like, Jesus, like, this time last week, it was mobbed, like, and now there's no one. Like, and it's very, like, it's instant. It's not like a slow, slow fade away. It's like instant, done. And yeah, that's quite bizarre. And then you get back to the daily grind of like it becoming trying to be a musician in a very quiet scene, like, which is very odd. I suppose that's it's not necessarily comparing it to the Fringe. I just think the Edinburgh music scene is quite. It's like clockwork, but it's clockwork in quite a quiet sort of sense. It doesn't feel frantic. Like, it feels like everybody's doing their thing, keeping busy. Whereas during the Edinburgh Festival, it's like everybody's doing their thing, everybody's busy, but somehow have more time to like watch each other. Like, it's very strange.
I figured we'd talk a little bit, because we talked a bit about the music that you've just put out recently, but you've got more music in the pipeline, and we were thinking, like, we might as well talk about that, because that's super exciting.
Yeah. I'm not really sure where the song came from. I just began writing lyrics in my head and was like, okay, I'm going to write this down, and then a song came, and I think I wrote it shortly after A View from the Notebooks came out. I started writing the lyrics, and the intention was to have 2 or 3 songs lined up and release them over a period of time. I was initially going to do that with A View from the Notebooks, was just going to put them out over a period of a couple of months, but the songs all sort of had something in common with each other on A View from the Notebooks, and I thought, I'm going to bring this together as an EP rather than put it out separately. I'm still not sure if I did the right thing with that. I still feel like it would have been better to have 3 songs as it was an EP and squeeze them out or put them out slowly over a period of time. I'm not so sure, but it's had really nice reviews, and I've got been given really great feedback from, like, I suppose you would call them critics, music critics and reviewers and radio stations and fellow musicians and that as well. So I guess I've done something right, I suppose, but I still feel like I wanted to sort of drip some songs out. So after that came out, I do have a few other songs that I can do drip out. So that's the intention to do from now on. So I've got a song coming out on the 5th of February called Stranger Things Have Come and Gone, which is the one I started just writing lines at a time, and that is very much about where we are just now with the pandemic, where things are going, and just sort of reflecting on how it's sort of like a song filled with a little bit of trepidation about where we are just now, and how will everything that's happened over the last 10 months so far, how will that impact like the rest of our lives? Like, how will this experience shape how we are as individuals, as we are as a society, our politics, our economics, and sort of thinking about that. I initially wrote it trying to have it on keys, but when I came to add the vocal line to it, like, it just didn't work. So I just scrapped it and quickly put it down on the acoustic guitar, and it's ended up sounding like, maybe I'm being a bit talking myself up a little bit here, but it's ended up sounding like a cross between a Neil Young song and like some sort of like modern day folk pop song, which is not really, or sort of folk rock song, which wasn't really the intention at the start. It was meant to just be like a song on the keys, on the piano, and suddenly it's like turned into this, like, it's suddenly become something that I would normally write, which was quite strange. Like, I sat down to mix it and was thinking, this is not how I intended the song to sound. Like, this is not what I wanted. I wanted it to be like a sort of like piano ballad, and all of a sudden it's like a folk rock song. So I just want to keep trying to put music out as much as I can, and not playing live has meant having to totally pivot online and constantly putting out a post saying, hey, listen to my EP that I had out months ago, is not really like what I want to do as a musician. It's not really what people who support my music in whatever fashion, it's not what they will want. And I don't want my music to go stagnant. Like, I don't want to just sort of like rest on my laurels, if you like. I want to keep writing and try to keep music coming out. So I've got this one coming out on February 5th, and I'm not sure if I'll have a song out, how soon I'll have a song out after that. Before I released A View from the Notebooks, I had only had out 3 tracks since my album came out in 2015. So in that time, I've like doubled my song output, and with that and working on doing it all online as well, like it feels very like intense. It feels a lot more intense than it did before the pandemic. This new song's just about trying to keep some songs coming out, and again, it's kind of taps into what you were saying before, Andy, about the sort of reflecting and observing where we are today, and not so much looking back retrospectively but also kind of thinking about where we go from here. Yeah, I think that's as much as I can say for the track. If you want to pre-save it, you can do so by going to my website, which is calumbaird.com, and it's on I think it's at the top of my homepage, and you can pre-save the track to your preferred music platform. And it's only 4 minutes long, so if you don't like it, you can just pre-save it or unlike it when the song comes out, and that's only 4 minutes of your life you've lost. So, yeah,
I'm sure everyone will like it. No, I think it's always. I think you touched on a couple of points where I think is so important for, even if there's just any musicians listening to this, just wondering, how do I keep things going? How do I constantly develop? And I think the first thing you kind of touched on upon is just keep trying to do stuff, because you don't know where, if you write down a lyric or you write down a riff or something. I mean, I've recorded like my own sort of music, which I don't really put out there, but I do something and then I finish it, I had some drums, I had this, and then I get to the end of it going, well, that doesn't sound anything like I started with.
Yeah.
then you have that battle. You go, well, do I prefer what I've just made?
Exactly. Yeah.
But I think that's a really good lesson for people to know. Just experiment, keep on doing stuff, because the evolution of where you go with that.
Yeah. And the online space as well, like I said before, like I used to write my songs thinking how will they sound live, but the online space the online setting gives you that space to be a bit more experimental and allow the evolution to take place. When I was writing Stones of Tomorrow, it felt a bit like building a piece of furniture. Not that I would really know what building furniture entails, or maybe like making a dinner. Like you kind of have an idea of what meal you want to make, but you maybe haven't made it before, or you haven't made it for a while, and you're just taking your time and you're making sure you get every step right, and it's not ready to serve until the thing's finished. And that's kind of the approach I've been taking to songwriting during this pandemic, is not feeling like I'm in a hurry to get the songs out. Like a lot of the time before, I would be like, I've got a gig soon, I've not added new songs to my set for a while, so I need to get the song written quickly, and it has to like work live. Whereas now it's just like there's space now to take your time and allow, as you say, that evolution to take place. And there's absolutely, if there's a musician listening to this who's done what we've said about this is not ended how I wanted it to end, or turned out how I thought it was going to turn out, there's absolutely no harm right now in recording it 2, 3, 4 different ways, and then picking one that you want to put out on like your main set of platforms like Spotify and Apple Music or iTunes, and then putting out like a different version on SoundCloud or Bandcamp, or maybe putting both versions out on Bandcamp. You know, there's nothing wrong with doing that, and that's the like, I guess the beauty of the online space. And I'll be interested to see if that continues once this is over, and if people will carry on doing live streams on Facebook, and whether the sea shanty thing that everyone's trying out right now, whether that will carry on. You know, wee things like this, like, you know, wee things like that. I mean, back at the start of the pandemic, there was people doing like videos to a click track of the band all playing but in different places. Like, we'll be interested to see if that stays, and, you know, all these different aspects, if we'll keep that, because it's been quite a good positive side to social media, I think, is having those little so they almost feel spontaneous, like moments, and writing music right now is like part of that spontaneity. Like, you just sort of see where it goes, and you can change it and add your own, add different aspects to it. So if there's a musician at home listening to this who's like pulling their hair out because they can't get the song to stick one way or another, then there's no pressure. Like, that's all I would say, unless you're commissioned to do it. But yeah, that's all I would say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And so the other thing that I would take from what you've discussed is, just like you said with the EP, you weren't sure how to release it. You know, just go with it. Just throw yourself in, and, you know, what comes out. You know, even if you get a negative reaction, that's not a bad thing. That's something you can grow from. And I think that's something that echoes through a lot of the things that you've said, especially with the stuff in the scene. You're saying, like, well, you know, you go to a gig and maybe it's poorly attended, but then you're driving home and you can contemplate on that, and you can go, well, actually, I know what things work for me in that situation, So maybe I
Exactly.
can improve on that in another place.
Yeah, those sort of gigs are good for practice. Like, if you go to, sometimes I'd go to a gig and think, I want to try out this new song, but I haven't played it live to an audience and I'm not sure it's going to go, and you get in and you'd be like, yes, there's no one here, so if this goes terribly, no one's going to hear it. And I still get paid, so it's all good.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
All right, well, Calum, it's been great to have you on the show. I really appreciate you making the time.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. I just appreciate you giving us an insight into not only what it was like to be a musician in the Edinburgh scene when we had a fluid scene with live events, but also that transition that you've made to kind of adjusting to be online. I think a lot of people will probably find that interesting, and then obviously, as we alluded to, any musicians can learn from what you've done. Because I think I don't think I'm being too bold when saying this. I think from what I've seen that you've done, I think you've been fairly successful with what you've been putting out on the interweb, as we call it. And I think from what I've seen, you've been getting a good reaction, which is always good from a supporter of music to see that people are receiving a good reaction and receiving support. So hopefully that some people can take some pointers of what you've done and then apply it in their own way. And help keep their originality going. Thank you once again for joining us on the show. Another plug that I would like to make is Calum also does a podcast. So when you're finished with this one, go and check out Calum's podcast. I think you can get it on SoundCloud, is that right? And
Spotify. I've moved it over to Spotify now, yeah.
So go and check that out as well, and obviously check out the EP that was released in December, which is what we've been discussing. And of course, the brand new single, which comes out on the 5th of February. So once again, thank you so much, Calum. And if you wouldn't mind wrapping up the show by telling our listeners what we're going to listen to.
Hi, I'm Calum Baird. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. And this is my song, Contemplating the Sunflowers, from my EP, A View from the Notebooks. Sun in my eyes, smile on my face. What nasty surprise is gonna take its place? Trying hard to chill when chilling's hard to do. The mind needs a thrill, crying out for something new. I've always too much to say, but I'm washed up with the rain today, and I'm tired of overthinking, 'cause I always get a feeling that I'm sinking. My sunglasses on, holding back the tears, keep on feeling gone as I polish off my fears. Have I the smarts to preserve myself, or the intelligence to improve? Learning is for someone else, that's why I always lose. I'm searching for the right words to say, and I'm in sync with the weather today, like a violet that's shrinking. I can feel the black clouds lifting. Contemplating the sunflowers,
over my morning brew, cashing in the hours to distract myself with something new.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the podcast today. Hopefully you enjoyed the interview with the amazing Calum Baird and also our discoveries. Make sure you go and like and listen to all the artists we have discussed today. The links are in the descriptions below, whether you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Mixcloud, or YouTube. They will be in those descriptions. So make sure you follow those artists. And also let us know if there's any music or things that we should be discussing. Please hit us up with an email at whm@avosound.com, and remember to follow us on Twitter at WHMusicShow, and you can get us on Facebook at What's Happening Music. We hope you have a great day, whatever you end up doing, and until the next show, have a great one, guys. Peace.